Tonight, we touch on subjects which sound like they have come direct from a Hollywood disaster movie. You know, the type where Bruce Willis usually saves the day. What if we discovered that we had been lied to for decades about an impending collision with a gigantic planetary object? What if the establishment suddenly realised they were about to be found out? Instead of coming clean, they invent a different space-bound object, say a comet, to cover the fact they had been ignoring impending disaster for all this time. What if originally it looked like this collision would occur at the end of 2012, but they've even been wrong about that, and it will happen at the end of 2011? And what if they only let the most elite of our people know so they could prepare themselves? They wouldn't do that, would they? Let's find out as we go On the Edge. Good evening, my name is Alex G, presenting the programme for you this evening, and of course, as it's live, that means we need your interaction, and here's Melissa to explain how.
Thank you, Alex. Text in on 86686, type the word EDGE, and then a space, and then your message, and normal network charges apply, and I'm looking forward to seeing what you have to say.
So there we go, everybody. We're looking forward to those calls, and Melissa will be giving us the cream of your comments at the start of each segment of the show. Now, my guest tonight is Valentine St Aubyn, a novelist and radio host who is fascinated by the world of the unseen and the concepts of parallel universes and multidimensionality. So, Valentine, welcome to the show.
Thank you.
And let's take up on the author side of your vast array of different careers here, and you've got a trilogy in progress, and so tell us all about the theme of that.
Okay. Well, my book is entitled Zoe Evans' Possible World to the Crystal, and it's book one of a trilogy that I began writing almost 10 years ago now. Book one is actually out now, and I'm writing book two, which is Zoe Evans' Possible World, Star of Aldebaran.
Right.
And as you introduced, it's about parallel universes, it's about time travel, and in book one there is, I use the element of crystal power in my main character, Zoe Evans, which allows her to time travel. And book one introduces Zoe Evans, the character, and the background information, the family background, because it's a family story as well as a science fiction story. And so it lays the foundations as to what the rest of the books will be about. And the way that I start the book, the storyline is told from the point of view of Zoe Evans when she's an older woman.
Right.
And so she's thinking back to the past, back to her childhood. So the book opens in 2036, and she talks about the years of discontent that planet Earth has been through. And she's remembering from a child the years that lead up to that, and she's gone through those years, and she's now going to share that with the reading public. And the years of discontent relate to what we call the shift. And there's a lot of discussion on the internet at the moment about the times that we're in right now. Are we moving into a new, well, they're calling it a new dimension, like we're moving into the fifth dimension? Is this correct? What does that mean? So I explore those types of themes, and I explore it from a humanistic point of view. So that's sort of the main premise of the book. The first book obviously has a lot more detail to that, but I'd like to keep that hidden.
Give that a little tease for the
yes,
reader.
Just not to give the storyline away, because the storyline is quite important. And as as Zoe Evans develops her understanding of why she's found the crystal. It opens up a whole world of possible worlds, and that's why I've called it Possible Worlds.
I've got you. Now, you say that this book is mainly aimed at young adults. So do you think these themes are a little bit of a stretch for that age group? Or...
I don't think so at all. No. I'm personally interested in trying to connect with the younger generation. Obviously, at the moment, the types of things that are quite in at the moment are, you know, like the Harry Potter books. There's a lot of vampire things out there, and I wanted to just offer something, because, you know, the time that we're in right now is very important. It's important for us to be getting in touch with our inner selves, and those types of subjects take us into one direction, and I'd like to take the younger generation into a different type of direction.
Right.
You know, a more positive, brighter direction. And, you know, my book itself is tied into a lot of the themes that many of the modern scientists are exploring in physics, like the quantum world. You know, they're finding out so many things nowadays with the quantum world that we do, that parallel universes do exist. It's not made up. It is actually real. They can prove it, and they call it string theory. They call it the multiverse. So I think any you know, teenager, any young adult would actually find that quite interesting. So I don't think it's a stretch for the imagination. But also, I also have written the book for adults as well.
Right.
So it's for everybody. It's for everybody.
So teenagers of all ages, really. Yeah,
teenagers of all ages, and for adults who enjoy those types of themes. Because when I was writing the first draft, we can talk about, you know, how I got to where I got to with the writing, because for any writer there's always a journey. But I was writing about concepts that I had to then grow into. You know, so the book is actually, you know, a projection of what I was learning as well, and I had to then take those themes and make them understandable for the common person. Put them in layman terms. So
you were learning while you were writing?
I was learning while I was writing. So it is for everybody. It's for children, it's for adults, and there is a lot of coded information in there. So.
Now, the fact that you have set it in 2036
yes.
is in itself optimistic, because we have so many doom-laden prophecies sort of just around the corner that we're led to believe are going to happen. So was that something that you wanted to set out to show, that we will get through this?
Initially, I was not thinking in those terms. When I wrote the first draft, I was actually thinking from a completely different point of view, because when I sat down to write this book, I was actually going to write something completely different. The book wrote itself, and it wrote itself from the multidimensional point of view, from the parallel realities point of view. Obviously, when you write within drafts. So the first draft then became the second, then the third, and when I first started writing the first draft, that was back in 2001, and then I completed it. I was quite happy with it by 2003, and then it sat for about 7 years. And in that time, I grew with my knowledge as well, and then I started to pick up on the themes that are out there. You know, some of these more, you know, will we be here? You know, in the future, do we have a future? And so I try to explore that through my character Zoe Evans.
Got you.
Yeah.
Got you. Now, we were talking about things doom-laden, and I know one of your particular interests is this concept of Nibiru, which is Planet X, as is more widely known. It's actually one of the hot topics on our forums at edgemediatv.com. So there's 9 whole pages there to have a look through in terms of what people have said on this topic. And now this is a suggestion that there is going to be possibly a near miss or even a planetary collision with the Earth. And indeed, I gather that NASA has been saying that the basis of all these theories and possibilities, they've been saying now for 28 years that this concept of Planet X does not exist.
Yes.
So what would be your first response to people who would say that we're not going to be hit by this huge galactic thing?
I think the area of Nibiru, and it's also known as Planet X, is quite a complicated one. It certainly does exist. That is a fact. How it exists is the question.
Right.
And what does NASA know? And there is enough evidence to suggest that NASA knows quite a bit and has been keeping it quiet. The way that the story broke, for the mainstream, because all of this goes way back. Obviously, we have there's a whole historical line that connects Nibiru to the past, to the Sumerians and those types of texts.
Right.
But in our modern times, in 1982, NASA sent a probe up into space. It was the IRAS telescope. It was a fancy new infrared telescope that they had actually just built. And they put it up into space.
Yep.
And it was very quick, they picked up Planet X. Now, the question is, did they know that that's what they wanted to do?
Right.
Okay, because within the astronomical community, they have always been aware that there is a 10th planet, and the reason why that they've always been aware, there is something that they call perturbations, and the planets have been doing strange things, and they know this through the calculations, and that in the past they found planets like Neptune and Pluto and Uranus. So the question begs: so did NASA know, and then do something and put the telescope up so that they can maybe find something? Well, they did find something. And the story originally broke in the Washington Post in 1983. And they said that they found an object. It was a very large object, probably about the size of Jupiter, maybe bigger. And they termed it Planet X. And, so they had sort of said that something had been found. And then the story broke in further national newspapers. It also broke in European newspapers as well.
Right.
And then shortly after that, NASA pulled the story.
Right.
And
so they're advertising the fact that this is what they've done, and then suddenly, no, we have nothing to report here.
That's right.
Move along.
That's right. Because, NASA obviously does have to say to the public certain things that they're doing, because everybody has an interest.
Justify their existence and their expenditure.
Exactly. So, and that's what they do. They trickle out certain bits of information and then they pull them back.
Right.
And that's exactly what they did with what they discovered with Planet X.
And this gets murky now because we move on to something called Comet Elenin.
Yes.
Which is Comet C for Charlie 2010 X1, if you want the full definition of this. A long period comet discovered by Russian amateur astronomer Leonid Elenin in December 2010. So fairly recent compared to Nibiru, Planet X, from what we're saying here. So what's the hook in this? How does this fit into the whole Planet X sort of vista, as it were?
Yes, and it is a vista. I'm going to quote Anne Eller, who's the author of Dragon in the Sky, and I've had Anne on my show, my radio show, as a guest, and she'll be coming back on in September. Because on my radio show I will be picking up, I'll be dedicating the month of September to Planet X. I'll be speaking to her, and I'll be speaking to Andy Lloyd as well, who's also written Dark Star.
And that's Peterborough FM.
It's Peterborough FM.
87.7 FM, ladies and gentlemen. Esoteric Discussions is the programme.
Esoteric Discussions.
Yeah, so there we go.
So I'm going to quote what Anne has said, and Anne is definitely an expert on Planet X. I'm someone that has an interest, because I have an interest in ET contact and what they call the ancient alien theory, so I just have a general interest. And as she feels, because NASA has to always justify itself when push comes to shove, and they've backed themselves into a corner, as we said previously. They pulled the information about Planet X when the stories first broke. They silenced it. Now we're coming into a situation where there are many Earth changes going on, and people are asking questions. They're noticing that the bunkers are being built. They're noticing lots of things.
Really?
Yes.
Right.
So so they need to justify themselves in some way. So as far as Anne is concerned, she feels that Comet Elenin is actually disinformation. Now, whether that's correct or not, I'm not sure. But if you check the internet, there's many people talking about the alignments that Comet Elenin makes, and it seems like when Comet Elenin makes an alignment, things happen.
And we're talking earthquakes, tsunamis. And there was such as this with the Japanese tsunami in March?
There was.
Right.
Comet Elenin made a direct alignment with Earth in March 2011. And we had I think it was a 9.0, a 9.0 earthquake in Japan. And I believe when the earthquake first happened, they had downgraded it to an 8.8, but then they had to later admit that it was a 9.0.
So they fudged the statistics there.
They're constantly doing that. Yeah. And also there was an earthquake, I believe, the one in Chile as well.
Goodness me.
That one, Elenin made an alignment.
Don't forget, 86686 is the text number to call. Edge is the word first. We'll be back after this break.
This just in, plane has crashed into one of the towers of the World Trade Center.
Oh my God. That looks like a second plane.
A major fire at the Pentagon.
There's no evidence of a plane having crashed anywhere near the Pentagon.
United flight number 93.
They have turned up nothing except for a hole in the ground.
Building number 7.
What was it if they had detonated? They were planned to take down a building.
Welcome back to On the Edge. I'm Alex G, and now let's hear what you've been saying with Melissa.
Thank you, Alex. We've had a couple of messages. One viewer asks, is Valentine aware of the leaked videos to families of NASA employees on the importance of preparing for a possible catastrophic future event? Somebody else texted in saying, why should we trust NASA? They knew their data would be analysed and could have planted this and been seeding it for many years. And somebody else has asked, apart from Elenin himself, has anyone else actually seen this comet?
So this is a comment about Leonid Elenin himself. So I assume people have been looking at something from the back of what he's provided in terms of solving that.
The whole information that's appeared on Comet Elenin is quite mysterious because, Comet Elenin was discovered in 2010 and it's now only 2011. And I believe if you look on Wikipedia, there's quite a bit of extensive information uploaded.
Right.
The question is who's uploaded it. And there's also movements of the comet as well. It's a sort of ephemeris type information. So the question is, who's uploaded it and why? So maybe we have to be careful about the source. In terms of seeing the comet, what seems to be going on is that amateur astronomers or just amateur people who have an interest in looking at the stars or what have you are using certain softwares, and Comet Elenin seems to be coming up, and when you plug in certain coordinates and Comet Elenin comes up, and you can actually align it to the Earth, and you can track it backwards, you can track it forward to see the movements. So that's pretty much the evidence. I've not seen a hard picture of Comet Elenin.
Right.
So I can't verify if it actually exists. I've only seen it through the software, the astronomical software.
But it's NASA who are saying yes, this is a real comment, are they?
NASA is pushing Comet Elenin, yes.
Intriguing, because I don't know if a lot of you know this, but one of our researchers just pointed out that NASA is actually not a public body, so it's not publicly funded, and therefore is not necessarily answerable to the public.
Yes.
Which makes it a little bit fascinating.
And that's
on that
why
one.
they say you never get a straight answer. NASA.
NASA,
so,
never a straight answer. Yeah. And just drop in a little quote here from John Holdren. I'd probably call him a friend of the show if there was any such thing like that. He's, of course, the author of a book called Eco-Science, and those of you who know your stuff will know that that basically set the green agenda in very, very dark ways. Holdren at the moment is the director of the White House Office of Science and Technology Policy, OSTP. You can look that up as a subset of the White House website, and you can actually find the document online where he has outlined plans for protecting the United States from a near-Earth object that is expected to collide with Earth. And of course, they will probably tell you the reason that they have done that is just a precaution. No need to worry, you know, it's just one of those things we have to prepare for every eventuality. Now then, Valentine, I thought in terms of people's questions about Planet X, we actually have a series of images from the Solar and Heliospheric Observatory.
Yes,
so this is image 9.
Okay.
So if we put image 9 up on the screen now, we've got a selection of 3 here, and perhaps if you can talk us through what we have.
Okay. Right, so these images were taken in March 2009. SOHO is a collaboration between NASA and the European Space Agency, and so it's funded between the two of them. And they've been capturing images. So what you're seeing on, I suppose that's on my left side, that image just there is an unidentified object.
So they've not said what that particular
It's very
dot
big.
is. Yeah.
And they have not said what that is.
Okay.
In the middle, the image in the middle, if you look towards the center of the image, that is actually the sun.
Okay.
And it has been blocked out. They've blocked it out just because they're trying to focus on those 2 images below it.
Right.
If you look towards the closest spot towards the sun, that is Nibiru.
So the nearest one to the centre there, in that centre image, that is Planet X.
That is Planet X.
Right.
The object next to it is an unidentified object.
Right.
Now, if you look at the image on the right, again, Nibiru is gone, and that image that you're looking at is an unidentified object. Now, I'm going to explain what's going on here.
Okay.
The problem that the problem we have with NASA is that they basically release information to the public, and it is often doctored and tampered with. And this is a very obvious, representation of that. Because if you look at the image on the left, Nibiru is not there, but in the middle it is, and on the right it's not. So they've obviously forgotten to block it out in the image in the middle.
In the centre one.
And they do that sometimes.
So these are fairly sort of relatively near each other in terms of the time that they were taken.
Yes, very near, very near.
And well, goodness me, it's clear as day there. Now we have the situation where we have various facts in fiction. In terms of we have what is deemed a fictional story, but it seems to take its lead from some of these facts that we're talking about here. Now, if we bring up image 8 now, this is actually a still from a forthcoming movie, Melancholia.
Melancholia.
Yeah. Going to debut in the UK 30th of September, starring Kiefer Sutherland, Kirsten Dunst and John Hurt, and it tells the tale of the mysterious new planet threatening to collide into the Earth. Now, what does this image here show us there, Valentine?
Okay, so what we're looking at here is, as you can see, planet Earth there. It's the very small one, very blue, and next to it is Planet X. In terms of the size of Planet X, we know it to be about 4 times the size of Earth, between 4 to 5 times the size of Earth. Jupiter is actually one of our biggest planets, so it's on par. And if we go back to the article in 1983, they said they found an object that was, roughly the size of Jupiter, if not bigger. So Hollywood has picked up on this story, and they are implanting it into the psyche of the public.
Right.
Like once again, they did it with 2012, the movie 2012, and basically what 2012 was about was the pole shift. That's what that movie was about. There was a lot of things going on, but they were showing a pole shift. And this is, in terms of the catastrophic interest that people have, what they are concerned about is if Planet X does move towards planet Earth in a certain way, it can affect the poles, and we will have a pole shift.
Now, I tend to look at this as a driver. So if I'm on an A road, not a big highway, but you're going left on the road and the traffic's coming the other way, and a lorry comes past you in your little car, it will shake the car, and you can feel that. Now, that's just a small demonstration of what a near miss would feel like. But we're talking about celestial objects much, much bigger.
Yes, and more powerful. And it's not that Planet X is going to collide into the Earth as such. What's going to happen, if we go back to those images that we were just showing, Planet X is already next to us and next to the Sun. So as it gets closer to us and closer to the Sun, the gravitational pull is what we have to be careful of.
Right.
And that's where the unknown is. What will happen? Will it get too close and pull on the gravity of Earth in a very detrimental way? And that's what people are unsure about.
And we have this terminology, and obviously this is a bit cheesy, but some people have gone online and said that Elenin actually means extinction level event Nibiru is near. Well, I think someone is just pretty good at the Times crossword for coming up with that one. But, so this seems to tie in. You've mentioned it there, 2012, the movie. So how does the whole Mayan calendar in 2012 actually tie into Nibiru and its potential arrival time?
Well, you know, many of the ancient cultures have talked about the times that we're in. You know, as a child, I mean, I was a very strange child. From a very young age, I got into metaphysical and esoteric types of information. And I started with the Bible because that was the easiest thing, you know, it was in my home. And I was obsessed with reading the book of Revelations. And I just kept reading it and rereading it. And I went through a stage between the age of about 13 to 16 where, you know, I was really trying to understand what's going on here. And maybe there was a part of myself that knew we were going to be in very special times. And as I have become older, I've realized, well, they are saying that we are in very special times. So the Mayan calendar is an extension of what many other cultures have been prophesizing. The Mayans aren't the only people who have said that there's a great shift coming. The Hopis as well are known with their prophecies to say that, you know, something here is going to happen on planet Earth. We're coming to the end of an age during this certain time, and there's going to be a purification of some sort. And once we get through the purification, we're going to enter into a new age. So you've got the Mayans saying that, we've got the Hopis, you've got the Book of Revelations. It's up to you to believe yes or no, if it's real or not, but they're stories that come from somewhere. And you've got the astrological point of view as well. In astrology, we're coming to the end of a 26,000-year cycle, and this is where we get the hippie movement with the New Age and the Age of Aquarius and the New Age that's coming. And it's all, you know, it's all nice and cuddly and everything, but to start a New Age, I would say, is a big thing. And that's what we're seeing right now. We're seeing complete collapse, you know. So the Mayans themselves were great stargazers. They tapped into information that, you know, in our culture we have been completely detached from. And even the Mayan calendar itself, however, is, I would say, it's slightly incorrect in terms of the timeline. Because when we try to match it up with our own calendars aren't completely correct as well. So it's a window. So when we say 2012, the official date is, December the 21st, 2012 at 11:11. That's the time of the end of a certain age. But I would actually say it's more of a window. We're talking about a window of time. And we're in it right now. We don't have to wait for 2012. It's already here.
We're on that upward slope towards it. And I mean, so to summarise where we're at, NASA is backing this comet Elenin, which is a small, insignificant thing that won't have much of an effect on us. But you're saying that the potential is we have Nibiru, this planet X, out there, and if the information I've processed is correct, this is 4 times the diameter of Earth, 23 times the mass of Earth. So consequently, this will have an effect on the planet in some shape or form. And to not think it will is sort of a little bit burying your head in the sand, I would say. It is,
and that's why it's important for us to actually start opening our eyes. They are communicating with us, the elite, whoever runs the show, however you want to describe that, they're communicating with us. They communicate through Hollywood, through the movies. You might say it's a bit fanciful, it's all about the end of the world, it's apocalyptic. But they are trying to communicate with us. It's up to you to pick up the clue and take it somewhere,
And this leads on because some people will remember in the late 1990s that we had the Comet Halley-Bopp incident. And people are going to say, well, us talking about comets or anything like this is a bit irresponsible because this led to the Heaven's Gate suicide cult. So
it's quite devastating. And the thing with Halley-Bopp was it did actually, for what I understand, it was about 3 hours away of colliding with the Earth. So it was actually something to take on board. And of course, the Vatican have a series of telescopes, and they were very concerned.
The Vatican?
Yeah,
right.
They do. They have a series of telescopes and astronomers, and they were very concerned about Halley-Bopp because for them, and it's the same thing with Planet X as well, if information is coming out that we've got another planet, within our solar system, or if a comet appears, it puts their power on the line. So they're very concerned in terms of what's going on, and they're tracking it as well. But Halley-Bopp actually did get close to the Earth. So it wasn't just, it didn't happen, it missed us. And again, let's think back to what Hollywood was doing in 1997. What movies were coming out?
Well, we're talking about the likes of Deep Impact for a start off.
And Armageddon.
Yes. Getting back to Bruce Willis there. Definitely.
So that's how they communicate with us,
So it's almost like the information is out there if we are prepared to actually process that as part of what we're actually viewing. Right, almost time for another break now. Just a reminder, you can text in and make your comments on 86686. That's 86686. Put the word EDGE, EDGE, at the start, or it will go into a black hole, and we'll hear some of your comments after this break. Back to On the Edge. I'm Alex G. Now let's hear from you with Melissa.
Thank you, Alex. And we have a message from Cynical Sean in North Hants. He says, if Planet X is so close, then do you know how close it is and when will it be at its closest? And Denise says, is Nibiru coming towards us from behind the sun, and is that why it's not obvious in the night sky, because the sun is blinding us? And Wendy, if Elenin caused the Japan quake, why is there so much information stroke disinformation saying HARP was the cause? Who do we believe? Jimbo asks, what form might this awakening of mankind take? And Chris O wants to know who lives on Planet X. And Gerard in London, in universal terms, we're grains of sand. Maybe we've taken ourselves too seriously.
Oh, I say. Oh, we're getting very heavy with that last one. Shall we work backwards? Now, we're talking about who lives on Planet X. Now, we actually do have an image of a Sumerian tablet, which is image 10. So we can have image 10. Now, let me give you some background. This is from 4,500 years ago. So this is 2,500 BC. Now, just to the top left there, am I right in assuming that is a sort of map of our solar system there?
Yes, you're correct. That is a map of our solar system, and if you were to blow that image up and if you were to count it, you'll count 12 planets. And the ancients, they used to count the sun and the moon, which we call in astrology the lights, as planets. So we have 10 planets within the solar system and 2 lights, the sun and the moon, which makes 12. The image that you're looking at as well, you're looking at inhabitants of Nibiru. They are the Anunnaki, those who came from the heaven, from the stars. And in this particular picture, they're up to doing whether they were up to doing many things. It's said in what the basic understanding of Nibiru is and their inhabitants is they came down to Earth and they manipulated the DNA of the humans that were actually living on Earth at the time. If we look into the historical record, there is evidence that something happened to Homo sapien, because what you have with Homo sapien, which is different to the other species, like Cro-Magnon and Neanderthal, they were quicker, smarter, more adept, and they basically took over the planet. And Neanderthal and the other species disappeared. So something came in to jumpstart their DNA. So this ties into the whole ancient alien theory, and Nibiru is a part of that. And we get that story handed down through the Sumerians and other cultures as well.
So the development of mankind cannot be put down to Darwinism and that philosophy?
Darwinism works to a certain extent. I think what you're finding as well now within the more modern biological community is they're talking about spontaneous evolution. And spontaneous evolution would tie into our DNA being jump-started. And they're seeing that not just in the human race, but within other species of things as well.
So Cynical Sean and fellow texters there asking about Planet X, how close it's going to be, when it's going to be its closest, and has it come from behind the sun, and is that the reason we can't see it?
Okay. Well, there's a lot of information on the internet about Planet X, where it is, where it isn't. And again, it's a minefield and you have to do your research for yourself. I'm not an expert on Planet X. I'm someone who has an interest. I've always had an interest in the stars and ET contact, and that's how I got into Planet X. I would refer Cynical Sean to a website called Zeta Talk. Now,
Zeta Talk.
ZetaTalk.com. They have, there's a history with Zeta Talk. Nancy Leader is supposedly a contactee from with the Zetas. Now the Zetas are the Greys, and we know
as in extraterrestrials.
In the extraterrestrials, and supposedly there are different types of Greys, and these Greys are the good Greys.
Well, that's nice. That's nice. If you're going to contact any of them, make sure it's the good guys.
Yeah, she says they're the good Greys. And she's been in contact with them for quite some time. Zeta Talk does have a vast amount of information on Planet X. So I would refer anybody to that website, because in terms of knowing where Planet X is, I think they're closest to the truth than maybe some of the other sources, because there are photos, there are images, and as far as they're concerned, Planet X is already next to the sun, and next to Earth. So it became visible to the naked eye in 2003, and it's been there, and it's right next to the sun. So that's why sometimes when people are looking up, they're seeing the sun and they're seeing Planet X either below it or next to it, and there's a lot of the two sun theory, what's going on there.
So NASA would say if this was the case, then there's going to be astronomers out there who will be able to go, well, there you go, there it is. but we don't seem to be hearing about that in the mainstream.
Well, we have to understand how the scientific community operates.
Okay.
And I'll give an example of Anne Eller, who again is the author of Dragon in the Sky. She worked for Dr. J. Allen Hynek, who is the father of UFO research. And, you know, he's the one that came up with a lot of the dismissive comments about, oh, it's a weather balloon or this and that.
Right.
But he was brought in by the American government to basically debunk anything that had to do with UFOs, extraterrestrials, or anything of that nature. And the truth is, he knew a different story, but he couldn't, you know, his job was to keep that information from the public.
Right.
But I tell you what Dr. J. Allen Hynek did. He sold, because Dr. J. Allen Hynek is the person that came up with the terms first encounter, second encounter, third encounter, fourth encounter. He came up with those terms, and he sold third encounter of the close kind, the term, to Steven Spielberg. And
who
also
rearranged it into the movie.
And also sold him the storyline. And as we see in that movie, we're seeing scientists being exchanged back and forth. There's a lot to be said. You could do a whole show on the scientific community. And they are also being restricted as to what they can say. But also there are different tiers of scientists, and especially within the astronomical community, there are different tiers of astronomers, and also the type of equipment that they have access to.
Oh, I'm with you.
You know, so some telescopes, those that maybe, let's say, tier 1, the more elite astronomers will have the most high-tech telescopes, and they'll be able to see Planet X, but they're not allowed to say anything about it.
Right, because of their standing in the community.
That's right.
Conscious of the time, so Ellen and the Japan quake. Now, HAARP has been mentioned as being something that people have said is responsible, and that's weather modification in Alaska. So, is that disinformation then?
To be honest, I really don't know. If we are to go on by what we understand with Planet X, I think there's a bit of disinformation going on there. I wouldn't be surprised if those who are having access to HAARP are using it to help jumpstart a few things. I wouldn't rule it out completely, but I don't personally have the full answer myself. I think, again, it's one of those things you have to find for yourself. We do know that the Earth is moving, and it's shaking and it's rolling. Is it all? I don't think so.
Now, in terms of the question about this role in the awakening of mankind, perhaps if we actually look at your own awakening experience, and we've got image 7, which is of the Kundalini, which is, according to the dictionaries, a sleeping, dormant potential force in the human organism. So, in terms of you beginning to understand how the world works, how do the Kundalini fit into that?
Okay. Well, I only have a short amount of time.
Oh, yes, yes.
I could talk
this is the Reader's Digest version we're looking for.
About an hour about my own awakening. I mean, I had awakening in certain stages. As I said, I've been into this, I've been into a multitude of information since I was very young. For me, I came into much of the ET information, the ancient alien theory through Eric von Daniken with the book Chariots of the Gods. So I went through a whole.
Now, if we take the image 12, then this is for those of you who are not familiar with Eric. This is the classic Chariots of the Gods. So literally, this was a big jumping-off point for you.
It was that book, and also a book called Out on a Limb by Shirley MacLaine, who had interaction with the Pleiadians as well. So between the two, that got my imagination going. Because I don't have a problem with knowing that we might come from the stars. It doesn't frighten me. So, you know, I've been on a long journey trying to understand where we come from. I've been curious, and I've been wanting to find answers. And I've read, you know, I've been into different. I've read so many different sources of information, and I've done my own research. So I've had my own mini awakenings throughout my lifetime. But a few years ago, I had what we call a Kundalini awakening. And I believe that sort of came on also because I was doing a lot of meditation at the time. I was using meditation to help me relax and release the stress from work. And they say if you do start to meditate quite deeply, you can begin to loosen up the Kundalini energy. Kundalini energy resides in the base of the spine. As you can see, there's an image of a snake, and that sort of metaphoric, it symbolizes what the snake stands for, which is wisdom. When you look at ancient cultures, they talk about the snake and wisdom. In the Garden of Eden, Eve was told by the snake, you know, bite the apple and you can know more. You know, so we see the snake having wisdom. And it will move through the chakras and up and out of the crown chakra, which is on the head.
So it's various points up the spine there, which are the chakras. Okay.
Now what is happening, because that we are being bombarded by so much high frequency energy coming from the solar flares, and just there's a ramping up of energy that's going on the earth at the moment, and everything is heightened. So many people are having spontaneous Kundalini awakenings, and there are symptoms that come with Kundalini awakenings. Usually the first symptom is your health. Your health completely falls because our bodies are not, you know, we're not doing the right things, we're not eating the right things to allow a Kundalini experience to be peaceful and loving and what have you. It can be quite painful as the energy moves through the chakras. So most people are having, many people are having a Kundalini awakening, but on average, maybe not as many, and not many people know about it. And Kundalini energy helps to open up the vistas in your mind. It helps to get you to reach a certain level of consciousness. It opens up the pineal gland, which is a gland within the brain, which is the center of our consciousness. So when people are having an awakening, the whole lives fall apart. You know, and they have symptoms, they feel hot, they're having sweaty, when they're sleeping, hot sweats, convulsions. When I was having mine go off, I was having convulsions during my sleep, and your whole life collapses. And that is, you know, a symptom of the awakening. There's many people having that.
So it's worth looking out for those symptoms. So that
it is,
and I think if you are looking into this stuff,
and I think if you're having your life collapse, and I think this is very important, be thankful, because you're being removed from the grid. You're being removed from the mainstream, because I do believe we're going to come to a time where either you're going to know what's going on, or you're not. And that time is very close. I do believe that.
We've got a very interesting image to finish off with, which is image 11. Now, this is a pharaoh from the 18th dynasty of Egypt, Akhenaten. Yes. And let's just look at him. Who does that look like?
Well, I'll give you a clue. It starts with an O.
Okay.
You can see his face. It's Obama. That's the word. It's Obama, and he's back.
So there is a belief here that Obama is a reincarnation of an Egyptian god?
Yes.
Right.
We have to understand who Akhenaten was. Just to pick up on the Kundalini point as well, if you look at the headdress that he's wearing, you'll see the image of the snake. That's showing, again, that the seat of consciousness being awoken, and it's a very powerful statement, because in the Egyptian culture, in their temples, they practiced all these types of things, moving Kundalini up through the chakras, doing lots of different kinds of rituals.
So it's effectively lost knowledge that we're talking about here.
It's lost knowledge.
Now, you've mentioned Anne Eller quite a few times, and I gather there's an event on the 1st of October, which is in the planning stages.
Yes.
So Anne is coming over?
Yeah, she's coming over. She's in America at the moment. And Ella, as we has said previously, is the writer of Dragon in the Sky, and she worked for Dr. J. Allen Hynek as his secretary.
So she's definitely got the inside track.
And she worked in the White House as well.
Well, there we go. Now, the web address for that is www.futuretalk.org.uk, futuretalk.org.uk. The book is Zoe Evans' Possible Worlds, The Crystal, the first part of a trilogy. So there you go. Just to let you know that under the radar, around the world, you've been on the edge.